Heb ik audio? I am. Yes? Tik, 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 tik. Boom, 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 boom. Ta 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 ta. Yeah. Hello. Hoi. Oh, I'm Weyers. I'm here to talk about lock impressioning, which is a special technique of opening locks. I'm a member of TOOL, that's the open organization of lockpickers. We pick locks as a sport. And as a sport, that means within competitions, without force, without keys, and well, with fun, that's the idea. We have international competitions as well. I try to win those. And I'm also a member of Hack 42, which is a hackerspace in Arnhem, which is awesome. So we're talking about opening locks. Well, in order to know how to open a lock, you first have to know what the lock is. And this is a lock. And if we look, seconds. If you look at the lock, you see there's a round thingy with a hole in it. And if that round thingy happens to turn, we call it open. And now it's in a door, so it also matters which direction it starts turning. In sports, that doesn't matter. Turning means opening. So if we look at this in a schematic way, there's a, all yellow, but okay. There's a yellow thing that's supposed to be round, there's a hole, and if you look in the hole, you see something there. You can't really tell what it is. But if you start turning this, it won't open. So if you take that down one step deeper, so you can actually look into the lock, you see that now we know why the yellow thing can't turn, because there's a bit of blue in the way. So if we start turning this, you see, it just won't turn. What we can do, in order to are able to turn this, we can push on the red bit, like so. Then it can turn, right? That's quite straightforward, it's quite easy. You push the pin to the correct depth, and then it can turn. But of course, it's quite a shitty lock. It's only one pin. So normally you have more, like 5. So now you see that there's not one blue bit preventing this cylinder from turning, but it's 5. So there's 5 pieces of metal preventing this lock from turning. So if you want to open this lock, we have to push all the 5 pins to the correct depth. We have a very special tool for that. It's called a key. And if you yank that in, you can see that all the keys, all the pins are on the correct line. So then it can turn. If it's off by just one notch, even on one position, then it won't turn. This one is too deep, that one's too high, it won't open. Yes? Quite straightforward. Now, so if we start turning this lock without a key in it, like I said before, there's 5 pieces of metal preventing it from turning. So in order to open this without a lock, I have to go in with God knows what, but push down all these different pieces. That's hard. But then again, this is the way it was designed. It was designed to have 5 pieces to hold that lock in place together. Well, but in the real world, which is normally not the way it's exactly designed, we have crap like this. This is the cylinder, and these are the bore holes. You see, these edges are supposed to be straight, like 90 degrees angles. Well, they're clearly not. These are pins, they're supposed to be cylindrical, like a normal cylinder should be. But you see there's all sorts of crap with it. They're not exactly the same dimensions than the others, which kind of makes sense. You cannot make 2 metal objects exactly alike. You could get close, but if you look at well, micron level for that matter, there will be differences. So why does that matter? Well, like I said, this lock has 5 pieces that are preventing it from turning. Well, actually, there's one piece, one of those 5, is preventing it from turning first. Does that make sense? And that could be because that pin is bigger or fatter or a bit more misaligned borehole, whatever. When you start turning, yes, there are 5 pieces in the way, but one of those pieces is preventing it from turning first. Now, why does that matter? Well, like I said, if we look at that one particular piece, if we start turning it, it won't go down, yes? But if we put a turning pressure on the cylinder, that pin gets squished by the side of the cylinder. And if we push that down, then that cylinder will turn ever so slightly until the next part is preventing it from turning. Well, and with some luck, if it goes down and it turns a bit, the blue bit will stay stuck behind this ledge. That's fun. Because now that lock is 20% open. Because we need to rinse and repeat this procedure 5 times and we have an open lock. Make sense? Well, how does that look? So we go in, we apply some turning force, we go in with a feeler. Nope, that's just springs. I just feel springs. I just feel springs. That one doesn't want to go down, so that's the one we push down. And then we start feeling where the next one is that doesn't want to go down because it's squished to the side of the cylinder. Keep reminding which pins you had and which not. And in the end, boom, open. Makes sense. Let's demo this. We have a lock. This is an American lock because I don't want my demos to fail. So. That's the way it is. Feeler pin. I have a turning tension on this. Go in. That one doesn't want to go down, so it goes. That one in, that one in. And we have a open lock. That's lock picking. Okay. So that works. Of course, that took way longer than necessary. So we have other techniques as well, because you can cheat a bit. Because if you know it's a shitty lock, then you can have other techniques as well. So you put a turning force on it and you go in not with one feeler but with basically a brute force-ish tool and start wiggling about. That doesn't necessarily have to open the lock, well it does in this instance, but if you start by that force and if it doesn't open, well some of the pins you probably, hopefully, put on the correct level. So then you go in with a normal feeler and then you can feel around what actually happened and open it then. So that's an idea. Let's demo this as well. Let's see if this works. So I have, again, same tool. So now I have a different tool, not a single finger pin, but well, it's more like a ledge. Go in and open. So that's a bit faster. So that's useful. Mind you, this is a typical lock that's on an American front door. So normally if I get asked, is it as easy as in the movies? Because you see the bad guy walking up to the door and just open it. And I normally say if it's an American movie, then yes. Because that's how it is. They have shitty locks. They also have good locks, but the normal thing that you see in the wild is mostly utterly crap. It's either very good or very bad. And in Europe that's different, because we do have shitty locks here as well, and we have very good locks here as well also. But we have everything in between as well. So you can get an okay lock in Europe. You can get a stupid lock, a very good lock, and an okay lock. In the US, that third option doesn't apply. It's either utterly crap or very good. And very good meaning very expensive. Mostly more than a normal consumer will be willing or able to afford. So yeah, so this works in normal situations. The tools you need for this are widely available. They are now. It's regular stuff. So you need the pins. So this was a feeler pick that I used before. And well, you have several kits that you want to use. You have to apply some turning force. You can use anything you like for that basically. So it's a piece of metal with a form of sturdiness. And some people like different sterdinesses. So there's well, everybody has his preferences. So that works on normal locks. And yes, these are normal keys. So if you look at the top key, that's a normal key. It looks weird, but these dimples are just places where your key will get in, where your pins will get into. So normally your pins, in a normal lock, your pins would go in there, but now they go on that side. So the pins come in at a different angle, but it's the same. I mean, it's still a pin stack, so it's a pin and a spring, that's it. And well, there you go. Well, there's a lot of holes in here, so it has a lot of pins. It has some, but only half of these holes actually work.
Because this is a Wendeschlüssel, which means a key that you can use in both directions. If you take that key out, turn it 180 degrees, put it back in, it still works. So it works both sides. So, and of course, if it has to work both sides, all the holes have to be on both sides. So yes, the pins will probably come from both sides of the key, but only half the holes will be used. I'm not saying this is an easy lock, but if you look at one pin stack, just a single pin stack in this key. Normally if you have the width of a key, that's about, what, a centimeter? And you can't have a hole in there of a centimeter because that would break your key. But it can go, well, let's say up till half. So you have a half a centimeter plate between no pin and the longest pin. In this situation, it's not the width of the key, it's the thickness of the key. That's, what, 2 millimeters? So now you can only, and you can't go through because then you have a hole in your key. So your play is about 1 millimeter instead of the 5 that we had before. So picking one pin stack in this key is probably easier than a normal one. But of course we have more pins, so yeah, that makes it secure again. Actually this is a Lips queso, which is actually a very secure lock because it's nicely made. But the same principle applies. If you look at these are supposed to be easy because it's still a cylinder that has to turn and the pins are just distributed in a weird way on that cylinder. And you can see the pins there, so you can just manipulate them as you go. There's special tools for that, but if you normally use your normal pick set, that would work. Take some time, but that's easy. I've seen people doing this with pieces of cardboard. That's scary as hell. But it works. Then of course, we have these kind of boxes. Those are fun, right? These notoriously have very crappy locks on them. The locks look like this. And I'll just do a very short demo. So this is the lock that's protecting your server from entry from the owner of the server next door. Open. Got that? Like I said, open. That's scary. That's not good. Why is this so stupidly easy? If you look at this cylinder doesn't use pins, it uses plates. So if the right key would be in here, all those plates would not be visible. Let's do this in a schematic. So there's a cylinder that you turn, there's a plate in there, and your key goes through it. So if you take the first top layer off, it looks like this. So this is your cylinder that doesn't want to turn because this red bit is in the way. Notice there's no blue bits. So your key goes through and lifts this up. So you want to turn it, no, it don't work. Put the key in, that's too high. And if you put it on the correct depth, it works. These are notoriously crap locks. One of the problem is if you don't want that lock and you call the manufacturer and say, I want a different one. They give you the different one. So then you need 2 keys for all the ones. It is possible to put an extra lock in there, but you have to do the effort. And I think that's wrong. So you see these locks in several configurations. Well, server room doors. Server cabinet doors, not server room, of course. That would be stupid. And old cars also have this exact technique. So there's plates that should open it. And old cars, we're talking, old timers, so actually old cars. A lot of Fords do that. Okay, there are different ways to open up locks, and of course there's physics. Hello, Mr. Newton. Billiard balls. Where's this go? What happens if I hit the white ball and the white ball hits the red ball? Come on, come on, come on. The blue starts to move. What happens to the red one? It stays. Okay. Of course, these colors are not chosen at random, because, it's the same with locks. So what would happen if we managed to get something in your lock and kick all those red pieces at the same time? If they behave like billiard balls in any way, shape or form,
the red one would stay-ish, and the blue bits would shoot off. If the springs that are down here are not too forceful, of course, and then you probably have to hit harder. Let's see if that works. So we have a lock, same lock, which is locked now. Tension on it. We have a device, it's called a pick gun. It looks like a gun and it goes pick. This one has a metal piece and it goes up and forcefully goes down. You also have American versions that go the other way around, because Americans tend to put their locks upside down. That's what they do, I'm not making fun of them. So put this in. For some weird reason, there's it, open. Well, that didn't take that much skill. It took a while, so. So we close this again. Put the electro pick in there. Open. That's fun, yes? I think it is. But then again, this is a big metal rod with batteries. And this looks like a gun. So if I fly to the USA, this looks weird on an X-ray. This will get me in trouble, this will get me questions. So, yeah, there's something hung in this A vibrator, not your vibrator, sir, it's A vibrator. So nah, don't want to do that. And, well, walking around with stuff that looks like a gun, especially in, well, an area where cops tend to shoot back, that's a wrong thing. So, what if we could have a different object we could stick into a lock that would touch all the pins, preferably from metal? Well, a key, right? A key does that. But then again, a key has certain heights to correspond with the correct depth of what the pins are. So what we can do is, if we take a key and file it down to the lowest possible position, to the lowest possible depth on any position. So that's what we did here. So it's the lowest possible cut. And then I take a bit material off the shoulder so it can still move freely-ish. It's fun. We have a key that's cut to the lowest position, and it has a bit of play. Now, if we take a mallet of some sort, apply the slightest amount of tension on there, whack it, and it's open. Now, what you do need in order for this to work is this key. This key has to fit this lock. So, of course, there are quite a lot of different locks about, so you need quite a shitload of these. Well, actually, the shitload is not that much. Because if you go to your key copying place, Hakkebar, you see a lot of keys hanging on this wall. A lot of them. Like, I don't know, 200 of them. That's a big chunk of metal. But then if you ask him, for all those keys, what do you actually sell? And he'll probably go like, well, this handful here. This handful here. These are all the bum keys. Well, not all of them, but this is, at the time these were made, that was 95% of all Dutch front doors. That's a bum key. It's a problem. Some of these, some keys cannot be bought without tiny little permits. Well, permits, it sounds a bit official, but you can only get them if you have the correct badge or the correct paperwork to get that. Sorry?
Or buy them in China.
Oh, yeah. Officially, China doesn't exist in this legal framework, so let's not go there. But, of course, well, you can 3D print those and do that in metal. There are several possibilities. But imagine you buy a new house, and that house is in a building complex. It's all built by the same contractor, right? All those front doors are probably from the same make and model. Yes? That kind of makes sense. So you have a blank key, or you have a cut key, because you have a door. You have an actual legit key and probably a spare key. If you take one of your keys, file that down to the correct level and practice on your own door. If that works, you have the key to all your neighbors. I think that's a wrong thing. So my advice is, if you get a new house, change your locks. I don't care with what, just change it. If the locks that are on there are pretty good, well, all your neighbors have those keys. And actually, well, if you go into a new building, you don't know who has a spare key from that. So changing locks is a good idea anyhow. But for this particular risk profile, all neighbors can make duplicates of your keys. Change the locks. I myself have very expensive locks. Well, I'm a lock geek, and that's an investment. But then again, if it's a proper lock, locks can be serviced. So if that ever breaks, I can get new parts for it. If I ever lose my key, and I can have those locks re-keyed. If I ever move, I take those cylinders out and put the old ones in. So yes, I have expensive locks, but those are, with some luck, the last locks I'll ever have to buy. Yeah, that's what happened, but technically that could be... yeah, new, shiny, woo, one.
How long did you test it?
Sorry?
How long did you test your locks?
I know how they work, and I know it's mute to actually do test them, so I did not test those. Because they work on a total different principle. Yeah, just different. So, we have an animator for this as well. So, which takes a long time to load. There's a mallet, boom, goes, and then it turns when we saw it. Yes? We like that, right? The talk is called impressioning. So let's start talking about impressioning. The golden question is, how long can I stand in front of your, let's say, server room, important door, without being questioned, shot, harassed, taken, dragged off, whatever? Would that be 2 seconds? Can I stand 2 seconds at your server room door without getting questioned? A minute? Maybe? 10? Can I stand 10 minutes? If I can stand 10 minutes at your server room door without getting questioned, I think we have other problems. So that should be monitored in some way or form. But 2 seconds, I think I'm safe within that time frame, right? You will not start arresting me in 2 seconds. If I am allowed to be in that vicinity and just walk at the door, and move off. If I do that twice a day, for about a week, will you notice? Will you know? Why does that matter? This is Mr. Tickle. Well, it was Mr. Tickle, because Mr. Tickle died. Mr. Tickle, Ed, used to be in his time, the late 70s, the NDE, which is non-destructive entry guy, for the FBI. He's a Fed, and he could do this. He went up to doors a number of times, and again, and again, and again, and again. And then he had a key. That's fun. Because you have the NDE guy, the non-destructive entry guy. Normally, if you want to, let's say you want to start monitoring a business. So you want to plant bugs, listening devices. So you need a technician to actually plant those things. Or it has to be very easy, just plug it in or whatever. But if you actually want to plant decent bugs, you need a tech guy. And you need an NDE guy to get in. So now your team doubles. But if this guy goes in first, does his thing for a couple of hours, whatever, and then leaves, and he ends up with a key, he can give the key to the tech. So now your attack team is just half. It's brilliant. It's easier. So one of the stories that are told about Ed is one of his first assignments. They were doing a sting on some mafia types, and they delivered Ed in a big cardboard box, and they placed the box next to the door at night. Like, I would be scared shitless, but that's what they did. First assignment, mind you. there was a hole in the box that he could just get his hand through, and he could just reach the lock. And he starts wiggling with it and opening it up. And then in the morning they took the crate away, and he was in there, happy camper with a working key. Well, how did he do that? With impressioning. There's a book about it, okay, yada yada yada. Like pictures, okay, let's go. Lock. I put a key in there now, but you see it's a blank key. So in the first animation you saw that it was always the blue bits that were preventing the cylinder from turning. But now because we shoved this whole slug of metal in there, they all get lifted up. This is, well, not the key, the lock is upside down now because for some reason, I don't know. It's American, yeah. Well, I like to impression in an American config because that takes a couple of seconds of my time. So now it's the red pieces that are preventing it from turning. And of course we have a quite nice handle to turn that lock because, well, that's what the key is for. If we start turning this lock, the same thing happened as when there was no key in there. There's one pin preventing it from turning first. Right? There's nothing changing there. What also is the case that there is play in this key. If you put a key in, and if it doesn't want to turn, you can still jiggle it up and down a bit. If that wouldn't be the case, if it would be a very snug fit, you would not be able to open your door after a long night of drinking. Because that would be no tolerances. I mean, you can move it in freely, a bit. So what you can do now, if you turn it one side and wiggle it upside down, then this pin will only hit that key, will only push on that key with the force of that spring. Yes? So there's this, so there's that one doesn't want to move. So if I move that up and down, it will push on the key harder than the other pins. Yes? This, come on. Here we go. This key is made of brass. That's the normal material that a key is made of. Brass is quite soft. So what happens, and if I turn the other side to the other side with some luck, another one will prevent the cylinder from turning there. So with some luck on two positions, some pushing on the key is more intense than on the other spots. Well, if I take that out, there you go. If I take that key out and analyze it closely, like under a magnifier or whatever, with some luck I see two marks. They can be subtle, but they're there. What we do there, and they look quite subtle, there's some marks there, and what we can do on the spots where those marks are, we take a bit of material off. That's not a working key, like a long shot. We put that in again, and we start going through the motions again. This one is still preventing it from turning, so that will give us a spot. That one is still not want to turn, so that will give us a spot. So there will be a spot there, will be a spot there. So there will be spots in the values we just created. So what do we do? Spots in the values we just created. At those spots we take away even more material. Well, you see where this is going, rinse and repeat, put it in again. If we start turning this, oh wait, that one is on the correct level. So this one is not preventing it from turning. Actually, according to this pin stack, the lock is open. So that will turn. So it turn ever so slightly in that direction until the next red piece is preventing it from turning first. So with some luck, there will be, this one is still the same, and at another position there should be a mark. So we keep on doing this until we have a working key. There will be marks, it would look differently, and then you end up something like this. That's the original key, it's not the copy, because I didn't have this key when I was making that one. And it looks a bit weird, it looks like a shark took a bite out of it. That's because I use a round file, but at the important points, it's the same depth. So that works, right? And if you're any good at it, you win prizes. And now we're going to do a demo, which is, let's keep your fingers very crossed. See if that works. That works-ish. Okay, mind you, I have a lock, just a cylinder mounted in a weird looking thingy. I have a key, I put it in a grip because I need to put quite some torque on it, way more than with normal picking. I know the brand and I know the type of the lock. Moet ik terug? Het echoot hier een beetje. There you go. Okay. So I know what the possible positions of those pins are. I know what the possible depths of it are, but I don't know the actual depth, of course, because then I would know the actual lock. Well, this is a blank key. A key like it's hanging at your key duplication place. These are the highest cut is a bit lower than a blank key. So I know it can't be this high, so I take off a bit material now, which I can do. Well, for me that is. It depends on how much pressure you put on your key, of course. Let's see. You see here, this is the original surface, and this is the one I just filed. It's quite a decent magnification, yes. So this is the width of your key, and this is way smoother than that one. So with some luck, I can see marks easier on that position. Okay, first time on the lock. Oops. Put it in. Turn to the left. Upside down, upside down, upside down. Turn to the right. Up, down, up, down, up, down. I'll repeat that a bit so I get some clear marks. So that's all the time I need at the lock per turn. I did some quite forceful things on there because now with some luck, that's a mark. I mean, you can't recognize what it is, but you can see there's something there. That's position number 3, and I have one on the, 1 second, there it is, that one. It's a mark. If I take a look at the one in between, well, there's some crap there. This one is more clearer. There's something there, but that's not really a mark. So the hard thing here is recognizing the actual marks. And if you're not certain that something is an actual mark, leave it there. Because it's quite hard to unfile a piece of metal. It's not impossible, but it's quite hard. So I take one depth out of position 1 and do the same in position 3. And that could be it. In. Wiggle, 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 wiggle. There you go. So that's all the time I need at the door. So that was my second turn, being 2 seconds there. There's quite a clear one. There's stuff going on there. Let's see, where were we? Mind you, we do this in competitions as well. The first round of a competition lasts an hour. About half of the field opens in that time. So this could be quite a long talk. If you use too much force, but if you use a lot of force, your marks will be clearer. But of course you run the chance of breaking your key. That's not really non-destructive, but it kind of is a tell when a broken off key is in your lock and you didn't do that. So that will be a wrong thing.
I don't know, who's counting?
Thursday right now.
Something like that. Well, a friend of mine, he's a pen tester, and he used to work at a office building. And, I don't know, his apartment was on the 5th floor, and he was not allowed to go to the 7th floor. That was a different company. And the way they made sure that you couldn't go there was with the key in the elevator. So every time he had to ride that elevator, like in the morning, if he happened to be alone in that elevator, he started wiggling that. So he did not take extra trips down the elevator, just in his normal routine, he started doing this. And it took him 2 weeks, and then he had a working key. Of course, he did actually use it, because, well, that's not allowed. He could have. Let's see, where are we? Sometimes it's harder to actually see what's going on. Let's do this. There's something. Yeah, might as well.
So let's say speed was really of the essence, and you had plenty of, plenty of blank keys with which to work with. If you already had an impression on a key, you might have an idea that amount could go down more than just a little bit. So could you sort of use like a search algorithm type of technique where you would file maybe 2 or 3 times the amount, and then in the beginning at least you're not taking a lot of chances because you don't have much to start from again.
Yeah, but if time is of the essence, you don't want to make wrong decisions, because starting over again takes a long time. Actually, this is an open lock now. It just opened. Actually, if you have a key, if you have 2 pins that are next to each other, and one is the deepest cut possible, the one next to it cannot be the highest, because your slope is way too steep. Your pin wouldn't ride that. So if you have a 9 cut, the deepest cut, and you know for a fact that you did that correct, that's the actual cut, yes, you can take the other one, the ones next to it, you can take down to a 5 or something like that. It depends what that particular lock is. That will be the only situation where I tend to skip files. Let's skip them.
I'm also asking in, sorry,
Yeah?
asking in relation to starting filing.
Yes?
If you made a mistake, you wouldn't have that much to repeat again, so you could take greater risks at the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
Than near the end.
If you're quite confident about your work, and at some point you start overfiling and overfiling to a depth that's not possible anymore, you say, well, that number on position number 3, you go too deep because you can't go that deep. But I'm pretty sure the rest is okay-ish. You can recut a normal lock, normal key without that number 3 position and just start working on that. Yes, that's definitely doable. And in the competition, it depends how certain you are of your previous work. But yeah, if you know I didn't fuck up on those 2 positions, you can just cut those and start up with the rest.
In the competition, you said a lot of people are eliminated. And is there a time constraint of the elimination, or can you afford to be absolutely meticulous, take your time, and still win?
It depends. The normal setup in Germany, also in America, is you have a first round, which basically everyone can compete. You have an hour to open up that lock. The first 6 mostly, the first 6 that open, so there is definitely, you have to be within the first 6, they go to the finals. So if you have an hour to open, and if you don't care about the finals, or you go like, well, I'm not going to the finals anyhow, you can take that whole hour to open. 2 years ago we actually had an American, Mr. Babak. he opened in 49 minutes and 59 minutes and 59 seconds. So, cutting it close is now called the babak. So, doing a babak is ending at the deadline, which is cool. So he didn't go to the finals because we already had 6 people. What happens in the final, of course, the first round, all those keys are keyed alike. So everybody has to file exactly the same amount of metal, because otherwise that would be unfair. In the final, everybody gets a lock that's not keyed alike. So you get a lock, I get a lock, everybody gets a lock. Start filing. You don't have an hour now. You have 15 or 7 minutes, depends on the local rules. And you open it within that time frame. All the openings get written down, all the times get written down. The guy who opens the person who opens the most, he wins, and if that happens to be a tie, then time is of the essence. Any more questions? How are we on time? That's not bad. 15 minutes. Fine. So let's go back to this. This will work. Yes. Okay, what do we need for this, material-wise? Well, not that much. Well, you saw me using, when in training, like I said, in a competition you know beforehand what type and make and model of the lock is. So you know what the possible depth are. You know how much one cut deeper will be. So training that, well, you saw me filing on this particular lock, a cut down is 2 swipes. That's because I know how hard to press on that file. If I had to swipe that 8 times, doesn't matter, as long as it's consistently 8 times. So knowing your depth, you need a caliper. At least that's a proper training aid. And of course, if you're off half a cut within competition, you could still check those, but with any luck, you don't have time for that. You need files. Not that much of them, but it was quite a quest to actually find the correct file. We settled on a Swisscot number 4 Robet file, which is not too coarse, so it takes quite a lot of material off. But if it takes a lot of material off, of course you go too fast and you don't end up with a smooth surface. If your file is smoother, you end up with a very shiny surface, which is also a problem if you put a lit magnifier on there, because then it just blinds you. You don't see it that much. You have to have something to mount your lock in. You can use the normal device for that. Well, I can't travel with that because that will be my allowed luggage weight on the left side, so that's a problem. And so I use some cool Manfrotto clamps, that's just theater equipment. Of course you could use a door, but that also looks weird on custom, right? Yes, we do compete internationally, so we do keep travel in mind. You need a shitload of blanks if you're going to try this. Because within training you will break blanks, lots of them. That's not a problem. I mean, basically, if you don't break blanks, you don't know what the boundaries of breakage are. Because the more force you put on that key, the better your marks will be. But if you put too much force on it, it'll break. So if you've never broken a key, you don't know actually how much force you could put on it without it breaking. So breaking keys, it's not bad as long as it doesn't happen in competition, because that's the problem. You need some magnifying aids. We have some, this is a nice tiny one with an add-on. You can put your key in there and you can just look at it. This is easier if you're in the field and have to do that. So only thing you need then is the key, a file, and this. Cooler mobile, that works. That's what Ed was using when he was in the cardboard box. But it's fun stuff. There's other people made other equipment for this. Yes, it's a sport that we do have our own equipment. I normally use a cheap-ass magnifier like that. That's the magnifier I just showed you. This is a cool concept, badly done, but the idea is cool. There's a port there that you can put your key in and you can turn it. There's a magnifying lens on top, so you can look at it. And at the back there are a couple of buttons that you can push, and every button gives you a different source of light. You have LED, yellow light, ultraviolet. whatever. So you can just play with those and start moving that key about. So actually finding your correct spots. It's brilliant. They did some poor engineering choices on that box, but the idea is cool. So one of the things was this board has rubber flaps to prevent the light from escaping. And first time you use it, it kind of works cool, but the fourth time you use it, the rubber starts breaking and you have all kinds of crap on your key that kind of looks like a mark. So you start filing at positions that you don't want to file. Like I said, you need a grip. Well, because the forces you put on the key are more than you would want to do with your bare hand. Some cheapo impressioning kits use a vice grip. Personally, I think that's a problem because the grip, if this is your key, the grip goes like that. And my grip goes straight. Because if I turn that, it's the same motion. If it's that, I have to turn it that way. So keeping everything straight, that's brilliant. This one is custom made by me for Jort Knaap. Well, I have a different one now that's also from him. And this is a special impressioning tool that also gets used by students. Which is brilliant. This is quite cheapo and it's actually made for that. It's quite light, so that's also good. I use a sawed down core of the same lock. What I can do with that, it's a bit dark here, but what you can do with that, if you put a key in there, you can see exactly where the pins are supposed to come out. So any mark, if there's some mark on my key, and I don't know if that's an impressioning mark or something I did wrong, if I put this thing around it, I can see if that mark is at least at the correct position. And if it is, there's a above average chance that's an actual mark. That works. So we have some other special marking tools to get it to shave off some minor seconds from the actual competition. We have some very tiny lid magnifiers, and well, you can use tinier files as well. So basically this is your go bag for doing this. You don't need all this kit. Well, this kit makes it easier and faster and to put excellent times on there. But if you're in the wild, you just need a shitload of blanks because it do need to fit. You need, well, some magnification aid, a decent file, and a grip. And basically that's it. Thank you very much. Any more questions? There's questions over there. There's a microphone coming in.
Thanks. Is this lock impressioning also possible with the key with the bumps on the side of the key? And the second question is...
Actually, it's quite easy on that, because like I said, you saw me repeating this process a couple of times. So in any position you have to go down and down and down and down and down until you're there. Of course, if you have a key with dumples on the side, the down and down and down can't happen because then I'm on the other side of the key as well. So any position, any spot on that key, I only have to touch once or twice and I'm there. There's probably a lot of spots on that key, but per position, it's way easy. It's fun.
Second question is, when traveling carrying lockpicks, how often do you get questions?
Last question I got from, ooh, there's a lockpick, can I see? That was actual, an officer at Schiphol asking me that. It used to be TSA agents were the most anal, they asked a lot of questions, but no, they learned. Lockpicks are totally legal to carry in most countries. Some countries it's frowned upon. But normally I say a lockpick is as illegal as a baseball bat. It's not illegal to have a baseball bat or a crowbar for that matter. You can have a crowbar, you can buy a crowbar. But if you're walking in the wrong neighborhood at night, not minding your own business, having a crowbar and a lockpick set, you're in trouble. So it's not illegal, but of course you can do weird stuff with it. So if you just don't be a dick, then you're good. That's basically what it is. So if you're traveling with lockpicks, if you get questions in any way, shape or form, you just go like, I'm a security researcher, which is not lying. And this is a physical security tool. It's quite common and normal, and
I know a lot of guys who travel a lot and always have lockpicks on them. I never ever had a problem mentioned. So. Any more questions? There's one.
I do rent a floor on the second building.
Yeah.
When I detect that the lock is turned and not the button is pressed, so then I instruct my staff to change the cylinder.
So it's turned, but?
In the elevator, the guy on the 5th floor.
Elevator, yeah. Okay, well, if he did impressioning it, then he ended up with a working key. So probably you wouldn't notice if that had happened, because he would still be, if he just switched it and took it off, if it's in the wrong position, then yes. But leaving your key, leaving your lock in a different position than you go in there, of course.
That would be stupid.
That would be stupid, yeah. I'm not saying lockpickers can't be stupid. I'm definitely not saying that. We fail as well. But yeah, actually if you want to be certain about it, this technique does leave forensic traces. So I don't know what type of job you're in, how high classified it is, but if there's actual important stuff going on, that lock can be forensically analyzed to figure out if this happened. I mean, we were working with quite a lot of good forensic locksmiths in America, and after a competition he was like, "Can I have your lock? Can I take it apart? Because I want to see how it looks when you impression the lock." And he took other locks apart as well, and you can actually see, because you're using weird forces on this lock, forces that normally don't get used in normal operation, and that leaves marks. And you actually could tell, he could tell in the end if a lock was impressioned by me or somebody who was less trained. Because if you're good at it, you hit the correct level every time, and that shows. Your pin just goes like dunk, 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 dunk. And if you're not that skilled, your depth will vary. So you can actually look at the skill level of your attacker, which is neat. But that you have to gut your lock for that. Yeah, you have to know what you're looking for. Don't start doing that on your own.
Thank you.
Yep. Other questions? So I guess we're done then. Thank you very much.
No more questions.